Thank you for joining us for this projections panel at Sag Harbor Cinema that brings together a panel of distinguished members of the East End community to celebrate the art practice, personal history, and humanitarianism of J. Oscar Molina. Again, for our friends on YouTube, my name is Megan McGinley, and I am the Director of Education here at Sag Harbor Cinema. The cinema designed the Projections series as a community outreach platform for regional nonprofit organizations, one that centers education and connection. Through the Projections platform, we hope to amplify voices, begin conversations, and cultivate community. I'd like to introduce today's Projections program panel discussion moderator, the esteemed Cristina Cuomo. For over 20 years, yes, please. For over 20 years, Cristina has worked as a writer and magazine editor. Before launching The Purist in 2017, she served as vice chairman for Niche Media and editor-in-chief for Manhattan Magazine and Beach Magazine. As the founder and editor-in-chief of Purist, Cristina centers health and wellness to help her readers refine and define strength, equilibrium, and peace of mind. I'll now pass the microphone to Cristina to introduce our extraordinary panelist. Thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And Oscar, what a beautiful film.
Thank you.
It's so lovely and peaceful to watch art in motion. So thank you for sharing your beautiful creations with us. I am the founder of this magazine. Everyone should grab a copy on your way out of the theater. You will definitely learn something, apply something, and feel better. I know that. I am a first-generation American. My mother is Brazilian. So I am also part of the Latin American community. My father is German and a child of war. He grew up during World War II, and he was born in 1936. So really spent those formative years in Berlin. So as an 86-year-old, I'm watching him and all of the effects of that on him now. And it is really, there's so much history there, and it's really informed every decision he's made in his life. So the work that you're all doing here is so wonderful, magical, and inspiring. And it really does inform the direction we have to be heading in as a culture and a community. So kudos to you for everything you're doing in this community, especially on the East End. Now, I just got handed the bios, so I'm going to read them. I apologize. And we all know a little bit about you, Oscar, but it's nice to get a refresher. So J. Oscar Molina is a renowned painter and sculptor working in Southampton. His Children of the World series is inspired by his vivid memories as a 16-year-old making the treacherous journey through the desert to escape the violence of then war-torn El Salvador in the hopes of finding safe haven in the U.S. In addition to his current exhibition of Children of the World at the LongHouse Reserve, everyone should go see it, it's beautiful. He has exhibited this work at the Long Island Museum and the Southampton Art Center. Oscar has also exhibited it internationally at the National Museum of Anthropology in El Salvador, Casa de la Cultura in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, and Casa de la Cultura in Marinilla, Colombia. Minerva Perez is a Sag Harbor Cinema board member and the executive director of OLA of Eastern Long Island, which stands for Organización Latino Americana, where her work is focused on the protection, empowerment, and celebration of our Latino community. Prior to joining OLA, she worked for 6 years as director of residential and transitional services at The Retreat, where she ran a 24-hour crisis shelter for women and children fleeing domestic abuse. She is also an accomplished actor who produces the Ola Latino Film Festival of the Hamptons. Wonderful. And Esperanza León who we met in the film as well, is the head of education and community and engagement at the LongHouse Reserve. So congratulations, that is a new post. She was a founding member of OLA of Eastern Long Island and served as a trustee at Guildhall of East Hampton from 2006 to 2022, during which she was head of the education department. She also serves as vice chair of East Hampton Town's Architectural Review Board. We all know that's a very important role. Is a member of the Peconic Land Trust Project Committee and co-founder of Wainscott Heritage Project, and sits on the Brooks Park Arts and Nature Center Committee. She's also co-founder of the Our Hamptons podcast. Yay. So many accomplished women. Wow. So, and Mago Martinez, my friend. Mago is a Latino artist, filmmaker, and diversity curator. He is an internationally acclaimed installation artist, most recently creating a collection of Latina-inspired works for the Barrio Art for Bohemian City Collective. He's a curator at RJD Gallery of Magical Realism in Bridgehampton, New York, and specializes in private consultation to galleries, artists, and institutions. In 2019, he co-founded AccessHamptons.com, a website that showcases the arts, culture, and entertainment on the East End. I thought I'd start with a little of what we didn't learn in the film. Oscar, can you tell me about your upbringing in El Salvador and the experience of the Civil War for you and your family's decision to leave when you were so young?
Thank you very much, first of all, to everyone here. It is an honor for me to be in this panel of such a creative team. And thank you, Cristina, for having me here, too. Thank you. I came as a child. I will say that, I had a very simple life, very simple. And I grew up with my family farm, and just like another normal child. Very, very, very happy. Living or taking a decision to leave the state, my country, to come to the States was a decision my parents took for us to find a safer place. It was a difficult situation, but it's one of those decisions you make in life that it really sets a mark as an individual. But here we are, so everything that we experience today is based on that, and I guess, I can only say I'm grateful and thankful to be here.
Thank you. Esperanza, what is the spiritual procession aspect of the children?
This has been such a journey in and of itself, starting to work with Oscar, who had been circulating in my sort of on my radar for years, and then finally, was it last year that we connected, and here we are. When I first saw the Children of the World, in particular the sculptures, Oscar and I were talking about them, and I had images in my head of when I was living in Venezuela, of processions, funerary processions, really. And so we were talking about it, about these kinds of groupings of people that come together, and oftentimes in Latin America, it's to celebrate a life, celebrate death, and so that's where the conversation went. And then really just looking at these figures, as I said in the film, they were like apparitions to me. They were kind of spirits. There was a visitor this past week to LongHouse that I did a guided tour of some young children, and when we were amidst your installation currently in the de Kooning lawn, I was asking them what they were seeing, what they felt, what they saw. And this one child just came up to me, and you always think they're not really paying attention. And he said, "They're souls." And I thought, wow, your work transmits. Yeah.
Beautiful. Minerva, while these sculptures serve as monuments to transition from war to a better life in America, why is it so important for you to celebrate artistic talent on the East End and in this community as a Latina member?
I love that question, thank you. Well, for Ola, one of the three pillars I'd say that we stand on are advocacy, education, and the arts. And the arts are a piece of the work that we do for over the last 20 years, something that I've been able to make sure stays strong within the board and within our community, because I know how important it is to have that as part of a dialogue especially when all else is failing. We continue to have sort of a difficult national dialogue and even local dialogue on this topic. So art does help us to transcend, does help us to transmit politics into souls, and it is sometimes the only time that we can do that. And thank God for children being able to show us the way. I have to say that last night I was able to view the world premiere of a film called These Days, which is an El Salvadoran-American story, and a beautiful world premiere at HIF. And looking at that story, and also kind of having to hear and almost justify sort of the humanity of people just from their journeys, sort of validating all of those stories. And they don't all get to bring us beautiful art that sort of illuminates other understandings, but the fact that the experience that you had under a beautiful night sky, even though it wasn't always a beautiful experience, you brought this work to us, and you're going to continue to bring work to us. I think when we look into the faces of children making these journeys, whether they're 16 or 5 or 20, that we need to look at some of this potential as well, and not just sort of politicize the doom and the gloom of everything. I think there's beauty and importance in kind of seeing through to that, and you're kind of showing that in your work as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Oscar, as founder of Mo, tell us about starting a successful company and the experiences in masonry and how that influenced your artwork.
Well, I can say that the 25 years in construction kind of gave me the idea of getting, the sculptures started. It took me a while. I started a company in '96. It was all good, a lot of hard work. Then I always wanted to do something different. Within the art world, but it was always I was always too busy. It was always not enough time. It was always like, the very last thing I wanted to, I had an extra hour for. So the company gave me the base, the platform to work on creating little scale sculptures here and there since '96. Then I will say just before COVID hit, I was planning to do a change in my life, and I was trying to replace myself from the company, being the front leader of the team, to kind of like come behind the themes, to actually do a little more work of the arts for myself. Not forget. I will not forget. She reminds me all the time how wonderful it is. So it gave me the base to start, and I replaced myself. I finally did it. So in 2020, I decided to just leave the corporate world and move into the arts full as a career, and ever since, I think that I have not stopped, and I have this desire to continue working on something that can make a difference, I guess, in our lives, and beautified our surroundings, and telling my story through the arts. I think it's not just my story; it's the story of so many countries and so many other groups and so many other individuals who have been here or have come here before me and will come here after me. So,
Thank you. Mago, tell us about your heritage and how that inspired your diversity programming and the things that you focus on in your artistic career.
Well, first, thank you, Cristina, for moderating this conversation. And I look at this panel and I see beautiful faces that I could recognize. You guys could be all my family. And also with that, there is, if you're a child of an immigrant or first or second generation here, there's always this motivation to succeed, you know? So my upbringing really, a lot of that stems from there, you know, and the good with the bad, because at times, you know, you're almost thinking that the other shoe is going to fall. So you're always trying to step 2 steps ahead and be out there. I was very lucky to be introduced to the Hamptons at a very early age of 15. I was working in the model agency business, and I was lucky that the sister owner had a home here. And I came out here to Sag Harbor, and I met the art community, the art family here at the East End. And I just remember getting my first studio here, working for my first gallery, and entering the art world here in the Hamptons. That's why it's always very close and near to my heart, the East End. I feel like the soil here nurtures the creative souls. And I feel like my life is in a full circle in many ways. Today we stand in this building. I used to work in this building for RJD Gallery before it burned down. So I want to commend the cinema organization for creating such a beautiful building and a community and a platform for us to express ourselves. I also, right here on the stage, have history. I met Esperanza and Isabel, founders of Ola, not too far from here at a Brazilian gallery. Yes, and I remember these women speaking Spanish, and I was like, oh my God, there's people here speaking Spanish. I gotta go meet them. And Isabel wrote the first article. Esperanza gave me my first show in her gallery. So this is a perfect world. And Esperanza introduced me to Oscar. And I absolutely adore this man. I think that there's not a lot of men like him. He reminds me of my father, which is very kind and just a family man and doing so much for our community as he sits in the Southampton board to help immigrants, you know, really get checkups and go to the hospital and construction. And all this work that is being done and the doors that are being opened now, more so than ever, as LongHouse to really premiere this installation that was just a conversation one day in Oscar's studio of what did we see happening, and we were like, oh my God, we could see these sculptures just walking through every museum and through the gardens and outside, and we'll take it to the High Line, and then we'll go to DC, and you know, and all of these great ideas. And Children of the World is an ongoing project, so stay tuned to that. So I think my Hispanic heritage has given me the strength, the courage, the tenacity to keep on knocking on doors and introducing these concepts, yes, through art, because that is the way I express myself. And I also feel that it's the way, it's a safe space to have a conversation. So thanks to all the organizations involved today, because we will touch the heart of someone that might be able to open another door for us to continue to tell this story through Oscar's artwork. Thank you, Cristina, for the question.
Esperanza, if you haven't been to LongHouse Reserve, everyone, you should get over there. It is a walking meditation. It is so glorious, and there are sculptures all over the property. You can see Oscar's beautiful sculptures. I think it's open until, what, December 31st? So it's a wonderful fall activity.
Yeah.
But Esperanza, I wanted to ask you, why is it so important to present sculptures with a socio-political theme at LongHouse?
So I have found testimonials from people requesting that kind of thing because they want to engage with pieces in a way that's not just purely aesthetic. And I know just from my experience, I've worked at LongHouse now since February, so it's a fairly new experience. And we have Carrie Barat here from LongHouse, our executive director, who gave me this opportunity to head the new education department, if you will, which is sort of a one-woman show right now. But it's vital, I think, to have this, especially because one of the primary things for LongHouse education has been the school groups coming through for years. And what a marvelous thing to be able to, I mean, depending on the age, obviously, but to be able to engage these children, especially because with local schools and beyond on Long Island, the demographics are primarily, and Minerva, you can speak to this, there's a predominance of Spanish-speaking children. So to have that opportunity to engage in a dialogue about this kind of subject is essential.
This one I love, which is interesting. Alternatively to the sociopolitical messaging, why is migration as an essential means of survival for flora and fauna taking the politics out of the narrative, like the monarch butterflies, redwoods, all at LongHouse Reserve?
That's for me.
Yeah.
Of course. That's something that I really just came on recently, and it was through Jason at LongHouse, Jason Amos, who we were planting clones of the redwoods that we have at LongHouse with some high school students from East Hampton. And I had never thought of, I don't know why, and I don't know if I'm just really behind the ball here, but I had never thought of migration as for butterflies or for trees as something that was a survival mechanism. I guess I hadn't seen it just really purely that way. And so with these redwoods, that's what is happening, really. We have Jack Leonard Larson had planted these sequoias in a way to create a sense of place of where he was from in Washington and on the West Coast in California where he had lived. And then now, and it's, as we know with climate change, these trees are endangered, animals in so many ways also. And so this was a way of the cloning of these trees and the planting of these trees is a way of perpetuating their survival and seeing if, they can survive on the East Coast now. We'll have that. Yeah. So it was really vital. I wanted to say actually another thing about LongHouse, which was pertinent to your question about Mo Masonry, was that I love on tours pointing out, especially now that we have your installation at LongHouse Oscar, that you were the company that installed one of our iconic pieces, the Sol-LeWitt irregular progression. And it's, you're part of that story at LongHouse already. You were already, so now you're here again. Yeah.
Beautiful. To be like cruising around, and the sculptures were actually right in front of Sol-LeWitt. And I remember when we were just digging a hole to set the foundation. It's very deep and very widespread. And the architect says, "You got to make sure I put a lot of rebar." And I said, "Yeah, that's my job to make sure this one doesn't go in." So it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good times. And that's how I got to LongHouse. And I never thought that one day I'll see the sculptures like face to face, and it's a
and
really
they were
magical
face to
moment.
face, right?
Yes,
at one
they were,
point.
yeah.
Because
They were.
Talk about that migration.
I love that full circle. So I'm going to segue a little bit with Minerva. You do a lot for Latinos in this community as it pertains to immigration law. You have an organization called Youth Connect. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what changes you've seen in immigration law, very complex that it is, in this community?
Okay, thank you. I do want to say that we've been doing a lot more work with LongHouse, and we're thrilled about that. And then recently through Youth Connect, which is an adolescent mental health focused initiative that really works with middle and high school age students and all students, so not just Latino students. We do offer a helpline that operates from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. in both Spanish and English. A lot of texting happens. I'd say half of those texts are in English, and they cross all kinds of socioeconomic, strata. And the reason why that's very important for Ola to move into that space, which is a space that very obviously brings benefit to people that are beyond Latino heritage or Hispanic heritage, is because we have known what it is to feel a level of exclusion. And so the work that we do, when we see something as important as mental health needs for our adolescents, and we know that we can do it well, given some other work that we've been doing for the last few years, many years, is that we thought we're not going to hold this back. So we're doing this to make sure that all youth across our 24 school districts will be able to have access to this free, confidential, and oftentimes anonymous support system. And so we're doing that 7 days a week. Some of those students were brought to LongHouse and were able to engage directly with Oscar's work. And that was a wonderful experience for them. I just keep hearing about, how much they enjoyed that. The recent addition of basically creating a law firm, kind of, it was a little frightening, is sort of a pro bono immigration service that we have for very low income families. And so this particular lawyer that we have is amazing. Her name is Lucia Demoral. She's originally from Guatemala. She and her twin sister had such a formative experience, of course, because of their journey coming to the States. They both became immigration lawyers. Her sister is a corporate immigration lawyer, and Lucia does the sort of more of the nonprofit work. So we've been making sure that her work is not only about direct services to our community out here, but also institutional education and community education. Many of our institutions here that are longstanding, that have been doing something a particular way for hundreds and hundreds of years, as the landscape shifts around us, that has a lot to do with immigration law, you might not realize that some of the laws that exist actually put people in peril for kind of ridiculous circumstances. That could be certain codes where it could be a fine, or it could be up to 15 days in jail for use of a gas-powered leaf blower, which none of us like. But at the same time, you have to kind of look at sort of the balance of the crime versus what's going to happen to somebody, and how those kinds of laws act to threaten and just bring fear into families for kind of ridiculous reasons. But this sort of institutional education that this lawyer is bringing to our East End is extremely important for us, because what we're looking at is sort of more of a lasting change, a lasting understanding of how we operate as a community and what feeds us all to be healthier and safer, and that is our goal.
Sounds like a good purist story. That's really incredible. Mago, have you noticed a change in the institutions and museums here in the East End?
Actually, thank you for that question, because of I mentioned earlier my upbringing of being able to come out here and have the opportunity to be mentored by Esperanza and many more here. And you too, Cristina, because when I came out with my blog, you were very helpful and allowed us to cover your events and gave us pointers. Yes, there is a difference. I think they become more agile because we're all learning as we're producing these programs. I mean, as a queer Latinx artist, I'm learning how to be an artist. I'm learning how to express it. I'm just really defining this. My own journey wasn't anybody else's journey here on the panel. It was a little bit different, But growing up in New York and spending time here in the Hamptons, I have seen some of the institutions are not up to par as far as knowing what language or how to bring our community to this space. For example, I'm a perfect example. My parents are not here. I think most of that is because of the fear of being in an institution. They see it as this big commitment, or they're going to be put in the spot, or they're going to be asked a question. So the panelists we have here, including you, we're key components to try to drive this conversation and keep on pushing that dial. But I have seen a little bit more of an openness to it because a lot of the museums and programming happened 5 to 3 years before. So now there's different ways through education I have seen as a big way to enter these museums. And diversity seems to be something, there's it's like, it's hot and it's cold, really. But here in the Hamptons, I think we're doing a good job to try to get up to speed and invite this community. I think having material in bilingual and Spanish and English could be helpful. Going to these schools and to these families maybe and inviting them to the institutions. I think a lot of the institutions are starting to do that sort of programming. I'm part of that. Esperanza and I have discussed with Beth Gail Copeland how to do that with even as young as first graders and kindergarten students through specific projects. At Guildhall, this is going to be my 3rd year doing the Gay Pride Parade, which just started here in East Hampton. It's going to be the 3rd one, and I work with their teenagers from school. And they're from all different backgrounds. They don't have to be part of the LGBT plus community, but they've helped me design and produce. So we break up into different sectors: producers, artists, and performers. So there is this openness. I think Esperanza is great because she's a great example. If we have someone that looks familiar and that could speak the language and is reaching out, there might be a bigger probability of having the families be part and inclusive. So yes, there is a positive upswing. The big reason that I pushed for this event today, and with the help of Minerva and everyone here, is to continue to push that dial and make it more relatable. And I think we all have to have that conversation of what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses within our own organization and approach, because a lot of these folks, you're not seeing them. They're working in restaurants, they're working in construction. They enter through the back door, they leave through the back door. They're in cleaning our homes. We're not there, and they're doing wonderful construction projects as well. So how can we reach out? How can we make this a bit more diverse on all different angles? And recognizing not only that, the economical power. I mean, if you walk into TJ Maxx today, you're going to see half of the folks in there from our community. When I was doing the projects for Guildhall, it was so interesting because the kids that were participating in the project that I was part of, maybe there was 1 or 2 of that demographic. Meanwhile, in order for me to get in, there was 352 of those kids sitting outside with these beautiful faces, reminding me of myself and my brothers growing up. So hopefully conversations like this, stories like you printed, can make it out there. That's really another big part of Children of the World. Oscar is the perfect example, someone that was hired to do this sort of work on a museum ground, to now live his reality and dream of being in a national museum space, next to the work of masters, and being accredited for that is very important. And we should all pat ourselves in the back that are part of this, because it is the future. Oscar found the silver lining, as Minerva said, and sometimes we're adding like a story and a face to the folks that are unfortunately leaving their countries and putting their children and their families at risk. And they're not all criminals. They're not all here to do terrible things, as the media sometimes could have this strong propaganda and paint this terrible picture, and all we hear is how bad it is for the economy. Meanwhile, I know for myself and my family, we work just as hard, or if not harder, to keep our jobs and to be contributing citizens of the United States. And this is a wonderful country. And we have to continue to push and lead in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to take a second, actually. Oh, sorry. I just want to take a second to actually recognize we're talking about museum spaces and gallery spaces, and Yubal Marquez Fleites is the owner of a gallery in Southampton as well, and I think one of the first Latino-owned galleries that existed in Southampton Village, which is no small feat, and we've been doing some partnering with Yubal. So I think that the art community, the curation community, it's important to note that we are really working together, and that we are understanding the strength that we have here. So I just wanted to make that point as well. So I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Mago, what art do you create?
It's funny. I started off as a graffiti artist. You know, I was definitely a knucklehead that was getting on trains, on buildings, and on signs. And you know, we did it because it was. You work with what you have as an artist, and you use your experiences and you use your surroundings to express yourself. And in those days, it was all about putting your name on buildings. You would see certain people that I'm not gonna, with big names on their buildings and stuff like that. And we wanted our names on their buildings. So it was a form of expressing ourselves and throwing up what we called a tag. My name is Enrique Martinez. My tag is Mago. But now what I see is more conceptual art, where I work with artists, curators, filmmakers, writers. I do have a background. I had my own production studio in New York City. I'm a very lucky man. I have been able to become the man that I dreamt I would be through hard work and support of my family and mentors. Today, I just want to share. I want to be able to make a robust statement on any level through art. So for me, I would consider it more conceptual and installation at this point.
Thank you. Oscar, what message do you want to send to the world with Children of the World and your other artwork, your portraits, your beautiful figurative art, and your Rain series?
I think that the message will be, let's be kind, let's love one another, judge less, be happy, and be yourself. I think that's.
Thank you, and thank you all so much for being here today, and everyone for joining this talk. You're doing so much inspiring, great work, so keep on keeping on. Thank you, Megan.
So everyone, if you have questions written on your note cards, please pass them over and I'll hand them to Cristina to ask our incredible panelist. We'll start with this one.
Great. So, not sure who this one's directed for. Through all your experiences, optimism is your apparent nature. Do you have a comment on that?
Sorry?
Through all of your experiences, through all of your collective experiences, optimism is your apparent nature. Who would like to talk first about that?
I think you. Okay, so there are many challenges. You know, let's not paint all pretty pictures here. You know, I mean, I saw my father being discriminated against while he was working 3 jobs to try to keep 3 boys and his wife, my mother, afloat. You know, and you do. You can't let someone ruin your day. You know, you never know what someone else is going through or what they're thinking, or as Oscar says, the judgmental factor of judging me because maybe I don't have something that you may have, or I might not know information because I did not have access to it, or all of these sort of what could be looked as limitations. But that same drive is the drive that drives us to look beyond that. You know, as Oscar did, taking something that could be the most terrible thing that could happen in anyone's life. I mean, I can't imagine being 16 years old and getting a bag of money and a sandwich and said, here's a phone number, good luck, we love you, we'll see you on the other side, to then taking that journey as Oscar did, being separated from his brother, not knowing if he was going to live or not, and becoming a successful businessman and mentoring and taking a position of leadership. And that's our job here. Our job is to become leaders, to help others see what possibilities, and that it is not all gloom and doom. It can get hard, it can be lonely, but the more we build awareness, I feel people build courage to come out and be their true selves, because there's magic in every single person here and around the world, and everyone just needs a shot and an opportunity sometimes.
Esperanza, through your experiences, optimism is apparent in your nature. Tell us a little bit about that. Has it been a struggle? Has it been an easy experience for you?
Well, I grew up in East Hampton. I think that makes things kind of easy. I was fortunate. I wasn't a child of direct, escape from war, but I do think that those things are in your genes. They're in your marrow, in your bone marrow, and my father was that. He had come to this country escaping the Spanish Civil War. So I think that idea of survival for sure, but also just striving to just make things work is part of me. But I guess I would say ultimately my parents named me Esperanza. That's a bit of a burden. And in Spanish, we do say, es lo último que se pierde. It's the last thing that you lose. So I could say that that's where my optimism might come from the most. I'm not sure. But I'm the child of, two immigrants, my father and my mother from Venezuela. So we have that. And I think I agree with what Mago has said, that somehow gives you a will to do and do more.
Minerva, you are a trailblazer in so many ways too. Tell me, how do you, seeing all of the sort of tragedy that befalls immigrants here, how do you stay optimistic?
I think I have to say it is the youth that is definitely propelling me forward. The politics are hard. It's hard to kind of loosen up some of those things that may be ingrained for a while, and but working with youth and seeing how they are viewing things. So there's even this idea of sort of a monarch butterfly viewing migration in that kind of way. There's just sort of a natural thing about it. The way our youth can have their friend circles, what they're doing with art, what they're doing with music, how they're engaging with each other. I mean, it really is a thing that's kind of propelling me forward, which is why Youth Connect and being able to be there for all youth is an important part of our work right now. So I'd say that. Yeah, thanks.
I think this is the last question. Oscar, how did your journey from El Salvador to the US, how long did it last? And during that time, were there any thoughts or instances that you second-guessed your decision, that made you second-guess your decision?
It took us about, I would say, 5 weeks to make it from El Salvador to here. So it was pretty easy to go across El Salvador to Guatemala. In the first week, we were halfway into Mexico. So the last 3.5, basically, weeks were just trying to figure it out, the best way to actually go around, to go across the border. And the stories were always horrible, so they were trying to keep the group as close as they can, but it was so many people, so they had multiple groups. My group was roughly 12. My brother's group was 15. And so once we were ready to take, the journey or to go across the border, it was like they split the groups. My brother went one side, I went to the other. it was difficult because, first it was the food, it was figuring it out how to basically survive. So rough. I guess I didn't stop thinking that can I go back, because going back was again almost not an option. I didn't want to be part of killing my own family. That was what was going on in El Salvador at that point. It was basically people brainwashing young kids down to 12 years old, and I just didn't want to be part of that. So I said, we have to stick around, we gotta go, and we gotta stay until we make it. So that's what made me push forward to stay here, to come here. And then, today I think that what keeps me going forward is not only the story, but what the things that I'm actually doing now and impacting as much as, my young kids. And they see in the story, understanding where I come from, and trying to stay humble in the same way, but continuously working on helping others around us. So what keeps me going forward is working with younger generation to understand that we can be better. We can make ourselves better every day.
Indeed. Well said.